Let's talk about that cup of coffee you might be drinking right now. Ever really stop and wonder what's going on in there? Well, we're about to decode its secret language, its source code, that decides if it's going to be bright and fruity or rich and chocolatey. Let's dive in.
So, be honest with yourself for a second. Do you kind of think all coffee basically tastes the same? Maybe you just think in terms of, strong versus weak? Well, if that's you, get ready because we are about to completely flip that idea on its head. The flavor differences out there are massive, and they are absolutely not an accident.
You see, the secret is hidden in what I like to call the coffee bean's source code. Just think of it like a computer program, a script written by nature itself that dictates exactly what you're going to taste. And the key to reading that code, well, it all comes down to one really powerful concept. And that concept is terroir. Now, I know, it's a French word, sounds a little fancy, but all it really means is a sense of place. It's the whole shebang, the climate, the soil, the altitude, everything in that natural environment that gives a coffee bean its unique personality. It's the story of where that bean grew up.
So, to really get a handle on terroir, we have to start with what is almost always the single biggest factor in that source code, and that's altitude. Seriously, just how high up a mountain a coffee plant grows has this huge, profound effect on the final cup.
Okay, and this is where things get a little weird, kind of counterintuitive. You'd probably think that a plant with a comfortable, easy life would make a better product, right? Well, in the coffee world, it's the complete opposite. The stress of living way up high, the cooler air, the tough conditions, it forces the coffee cherry to struggle. And that struggle, that's what creates greatness in the cup. So here's the chain reaction that struggle kicks off. That cool, high-altitude air basically hits the brakes on the ripening process. It just slows everything way down. This gives the cherry more time, we're talking weeks longer, to develop these incredibly complex sugars and acids. The final result? A bean that's physically denser, harder, and absolutely jam-packed with flavor potential.
So what is all that flavor that's developing inside the bean? We're talking about specific organic acids. You know when you taste those bright, crisp, lemony notes in a coffee? You are literally tasting citric acid. That tartness that reminds you of a crisp green apple? Yep, that's malic acid. This is the actual science behind all those fancy tasting notes you see on the coffee bags. And what you end up with is this really clear contrast. On one side, you have your high-altitude coffees from way up over 1,500 meters. They deliver that bright, sparkling acidity and those complex floral aromas because their beans are so dense and hard. And on the other side, you have the low-altitude coffees. They tend to be much milder, with those classic, comforting, nutty and chocolatey flavors, all because their beans are softer and developed way more quickly.
Okay, so we've covered what's happening up in the air, but that's only part of the story. Now we've got to look down, to the foundation of it all. I'm talking about the soil and the climate, because they're adding the next critical layer to that coffee's source code. So if altitude is the stress test that builds character, then the soil, that's the plant's diet. It's the pantry where the coffee plant gets all the essential minerals it needs to build those complex flavors. It's almost like the earth itself is leaving its own unique fingerprint directly on the bean. And this is exactly why you hear coffee people get so excited about volcanic soil. There's a good reason it's so prized. It's just loaded with minerals like iron and zinc, and its porous structure makes it super easy for the plant's roots to soak them all up. Those minerals become the literal building blocks for a more complex and defined flavor in your cup. Climate also plays this massive role, especially something called the diurnal shift. It's just a fancy term for the temperature swing from day to night. During the warm day, the plant is a little sugar factory, just cranking it out. But then, the cool night comes in and acts like a brake, slowing everything down and locking in all those precious sugars and acids. It's really like nature's own slow cooking method for concentrating flavor. So we've got altitude, soil, and climate, all writing the code. But there's one final, human-led step that acts like a lens, focusing and shaping all of that natural potential. And that, my friends, is the processing method.
Now, the two most common methods give you dramatically different results. With the washed process, all the fruit pulp gets washed away before drying. This creates a really clean, bright cup that lets that original terroir just shine. But with the natural process, the bean is dried inside the intact fruit, so it absorbs all these sweet, fruity flavors. You get a much heavier, more wine-like coffee. Think of it this way. One method reveals the original source code, the other one adds new lines of code to it.
All right, enough theory. We've looked at all the individual components.
Now let's put it all together and see how this source code can write two completely different stories right there in the cup.
And this is where it all just clicks into place. Look at an Ethiopian yirgacheffe. High altitude plus natural processing gives you exactly what you'd expect, a high acidity, fruity, floral cup. Now, let's compare that to a Sumatran coffee. You've got a mid-range altitude and volcanic soil, but the real key is a unique process called wet hulling. It's this rustic, quick-drying method they do there that amps up the coffee's body and gives it those signature earthy herbal notes. See, each variable on the left directly shapes the flavor you taste on the right.
So the big takeaway here is this: those distinct flavors are not random. They are the direct, predictable outcome of that coffee's unique source code, whether it was written in the high mountains of Ethiopia or on the volcanic islands of Indonesia.
And really, this is the entire goal of specialty coffee. It's about understanding this connection, about being able to pinpoint exactly how every single element of a coffee's origin contributes to that final taste in your cup. It is, quite literally, a delicious science.
So, the next time you brew a cup of coffee, just take a moment. Don't just taste it. Try to read it. Think about the high mountains, the volcanic soil, the processing method, and just ask yourself, what story is this coffee trying to tell me?